Hi, friends. I haven't ever done this before, but I want to talk about, from the viewpoint of a lawyer, dating and breaking up. On Fridays, I've sometimes talked about relationships, and on the other days of the week, I've tended to talk about my profession, being an attorney and helping people in their businesses and so on. But today, I want to kind of marry the two. And almost every litigation attorney I've known that's been in the business for 10 years or more is kind of a jaded person in a lot of ways. I don't mean any offense to any of you out there that are my friends that are litigation attorneys, but uh, I've litigated a lot of cases too, and I know that when you're dealing with conflict day in and day out, you're dealing with stressed out people, you're dealing with a lot of people that have everything they own on the line. And I've been in that situation a number of times where, people are calling you every day because everything they have is in your hands. And it's a stressful place to be, not only for the client, but for the lawyer that has all that riding on it. And there's certain opposing counsel that try to make your life as unpleasant as possible. And they come at the situation like the easiest way to win is to make life as miserable as possible for the other side. And you're in the middle of a Friday afternoon and you're thinking about going home for the weekend and you just want to pound out some work, and you hear that it's so and so on the phone, and you're tempted at times to just say, "Oh, tell them I'm not here." I don't personally do that, by the way. If if you ever get the answer that I'm not available, it's really true. I don't I don't use that response, but there's times when you're tempted to, just because you don't want to deal with another afternoon of heartburn. So, what does this have to do with dating and breaking up? Well, the conversation I described is something like ghosting someone you're dating, where you just stop returning phone calls and texts, where you decide the easiest way to break up without having to confront the person is to just sort of disappear. It's not a nice thing to do, but it's something that I hear about from time to time. And it's probably something I've been through once or twice during the time that I was uh, a mid single and out there dating. What what can we learn about conflict management, either from being an attorney or from dating? One thing that I've learned is that even if somebody is your opponent, they don't need to be your enemy. And you may get to a point in a relationship where you decide it's time to move on. You've dated and you maybe had a period of time when you were close, but things aren't working. And for one reason or another, you believe you're incompatible for the long term, and you decide you need to move on. You can break up, or my wife prefers the term transition, and decide that although you you don't feel you're a match, that for the long term, you can still be friendly to one another. You can speak well of one another. And I can tell you, interestingly, when my wife and I we began dating in 2016, and we dated for a good chunk of that year. And toward the end of the year, she felt that things were not working out, that we were in different places, that I wanted a more exclusive commitment, and she wasn't ready for that yet. And so she transitioned me, and I was hurt. And I took some time where we didn't communicate to let my heart heal a little bit. And but within a couple of months, I resumed contact, and we became friends. And I won't say it was the same as when we were dating. It we weren't seeing each other as often. The conversations probably weren't as long, but we were friendly. And in fact, when I was in China as part of a business and trade delegation, Kathy was the one person that kept in touch with me the entire time. And I was having trouble getting messages out of China, and I had her post something for me on my Facebook page to let people know the situation. And so throughout the year, we had a number of contacts. And then there was a woman that I was interested in, and we were going to be on a cruise together. And as it turned out, we weren't, but it was going to be an LDS singles cruise. And we weren't, I had been talking to this particular woman, and we decided to meet. And she lived a long distance from me, so we were kind of going to meet in the middle and spend a weekend together. And it turned out this friend called or contacted Kathy through a mutual friend to get a recommendation to see if I was a good guy. And Kathy told her that, yeah, get to know him, he's great. Well, as it turned out, finding out about that gave me a little hope that maybe things with me and Kathy were still possible in the future. But more than that, the point I'm making is I didn't burn my bridges with Kathy at the time we broke up, and thank heaven, because we ended up together. And that's obviously something we treasure. But if I had burned my bridges with her, it would have burned another bridge too. The woman who contacted her to find out, is he a good guy, would have been told, oh, he kind of acted like a big baby when we broke up, and he's acted spitefully, and he's said mean things to me and about me, and so on. And that would have been another opportunity that I didn't have. Now, I've seen the same thing happen in the legal profession. Two opposing counsel face each other in a bitter case. They take on the emotions of their clients. They tear each other to pieces, and then they get reputations for that kind of thing in the community, in the legal community, among even the judges. And they get a community for not, or a reputation in the community for not being civil to the court, or civil to each other, civil to each other's clients. And just like in the dating community, when it's not that big, when people break up, people talk. And so partly just for practicality's sake, and partly because it's the right thing to do, as a lawyer, I find that in the long run, it's much better to be civil and kind and treat people with respect than it is to say exactly what you think in moments when you're flooded or triggered and upset. It's best to treat people well, and that's hard if you're in a breakup situation with somebody you've been dating, someone you cared for, and you feel like maybe they didn't care as much for you, or how we feel when we get dumped, or when we get transitioned, as Kathy prefers. We're inclined to feel a little hurt. Why wasn't I good enough? It's natural to feel that way. And it's important, however, to feel, on the one hand, to look at it and say, well, maybe they just didn't feel we were a match. I know I've broken up with people who later said, well, you're a really good guy. Maybe they didn't feel I was the right guy for them, but they said, you're a good guy. And I'll throw out a name, Dan McDonald. I had a case with him a couple years ago, and thought he was a good attorney, thought he did a good job for his client. We had a cordial professional relationship whenever we had to work together on certain things. We treated each other with respect. I appreciated working with him, and it made the case we had together a lot more pleasant and a lot less heartburn. And that's true even though it went all the way to trial in front of Judge Davis. We managed to conduct ourselves in a way that was better for us, better for the court, and better for our clients. And we were unable to settle it, but we still treated each other civilly. And, while a date is hardly a trip to the courtroom, when it ends, and most of them do end, until you meet the one you're going to marry, they all end. It's really important to treat that person civilly, even in a moment when you're in pain or upset, and to recognize their innate dignity as a human being. You can make opposite decisions without being enemies, and you can even get your heart broken without making an enemy of the other person. How do you do that? Well, you take a deep breath. You take a moment to relax. You might even say, this is coming as a big blow, and I might need a minute before I can discuss it. And you wait until you feel calm enough to say what you need to say and to really receive what the other person is saying. By the same token, if you're the person transitioning the other person, if you're the person that is dealing them this blow, realize that that might not be what they want, and however good your reasons may be, it still hurts. It still hurts. And so be magnanimous in that moment. Be kind and charitable, and realize that even though you may have come to a decision that this is the right thing to do and you may be at peace with it, the other person may be surprised, may not have been expecting it, and at least may not have been wanting it. And so you're not going to be able to spare them all of the pain, but I think treating them with honor and dignity and reassuring them to the extent that you can honestly do so, that I respect you, I think you're a great person, I think you'll be a great husband or wife for another person, but it's just that I'm looking for something else. Whatever you can say to reassure the other person, that can be really helpful. My wife used to give gifts to the men that she transitioned, and I sort of joke with her that, well, they look at the gift and say, gee, how sweet are you to give me a gift? Well, then, if you're so sweet, why can't I be with you? And drives the knife in a little deeper. I'm not obviously really committed to that idea, but I do think there is a point to just being kind. The relationship may not be what you want. You may have really good reasons, and maybe the other person has some flaws that you just can't live with. It's okay. You're entitled to do that, but own it, make it yours, make it your feeling, and be as kind to the other person as you possibly can, and realize, be sympathetic to the fact that they're probably feeling pain over what you've decided. And so that's an important thing just about being an overall good human being, as well as how you're going to come across in the singles community. Let me close with a quote by C.S. Lewis. It is a serious thing to live in a society of possible gods and goddesses, to remember that the dullest, most uninteresting person you can talk to may one day be a creature which, if you saw it now, you would be strongly tempted to worship, or else a horror and a corruption such as you now meet, if at all, only in a nightmare. All day long, we are in some degree helping each other to one or the other of these destinations. It is in the light of these overwhelming possibilities, it is with the awe and the circumspection proper to them, that we should conduct all of our dealings with one another, all friendships, all loves, all play, all politics. There are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal. Nations, cultures, arts, civilizations, these are mortal, and their life is to ours as the life of a gnat. But it is immortals whom we joke with, work with, marry, snub, and exploit. Immortal horrors or everlasting splendors. Perhaps those words can inspire us to think about the people that we deal with, whether it's practicing law, clients, opposing counsel, opposing parties. In law or in business, we can view them as the possible gods and goddesses that they are. And if there's someone we've decided is not the right person, someone I'm dating that's not the right person for me, who I feel the need to move on from, recognizing that even if they were the dullest, most uninteresting person I could talk to, deep down may be a creature that if I saw it now, I would be strongly tempted to worship. That perhaps we can encapsulate all of this advice into one little phrase. Inasmuch as ye have done it unto the least of these, ye have done it unto me. Think about these words and these thoughts the next time you feel you need to break up with someone. In a legal case, how do you want me as your attorney to represent you? I'll represent you vigorously. I'll push your arguments. I'll push the other party to settle. But I'll always do it with respect for the other side, for their humanity. I remember back when the Denver Broncos were winning Super Bowls, and Bill Romanowski spit in the face of another player during a game on national TV, and it got caught on camera, and he was fined a bunch of money for it, and he apologized, and people tried to turn it into a big racial incident. And I remember Shannon Sharpe, one of his teammates, saying, "This isn't a racial thing." He said, "Bill Romanowski's my brother, but I'm upset with him, not just because he spit at someone, but because he disrespected another man." And that's what I'm talking about. Whether you're dating and you're breaking up with someone, or whether you're a lawyer dealing with conflict, you're talking about human relationships. You're talking about people's hearts and souls, matters of the heart, matters of fear and worry, and issues of love. And I just caution you and advise you, be gentle with other people. I'm not talking about being a doormat. I'm the furthest thing from a doormat that you could want to see. You probably know this. I don't like to be pushed around, and I don't want to push other people around. The point is really recognize their humanity, recognize their innate value and the divinity, the little bit of divinity that is in them. If you haven't thought about that for a while, whether you're Whether you're negotiating a contract in business or a settlement in litigation, or whether you're trying to let go of a relationship, just think about it. Think about the fact that people are valuable, that human beings are made in the image of God, and every one of them deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. And I think that's all I need to say. I appreciate you for listening, and hope it was of value to you, and I'll talk to you again soon.